For my capstone, I decided to do the research on student engagement, and it was actually, kind of enlightening and pretty interesting. So just going to ask the question, and feel free to, give us some answers. What does student engagement mean to you?
You want me to answer?
Yeah.
Participation.
Okay, participation. Anyone else?
Yeah, like eager participation.
Okay, I like that. Throw it in that eager. Anyone else want to throw anything out there, Pauline?
At least pretend you know what's going on. Like you can, oh, I get this, or it's not. Like some type of expression, something to let me know that I'm on the right track.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go. Picture for me a classroom full of students. Okay, and students are looking at the teacher. They are following the teacher's directions. They are doing what the teacher tells them to do. The teacher says, pick up your pencils. They pick up their pencils. The teacher says, answer number 1. They answer number 1. Is that an engaged class?
I'm going to go with no because it sounds like a trick question.
Because it sounds like a trick question. I mean, it could be a trick question.
But I mean, you can have classes that are engaged that look a bit more chaotic than what you just described.
Okay.
That happens in my class all the time.
Okay. In another scenario, picture for me, you've got class going on, and Susie turns to Billy, and they're talking in the middle of, whatever, you're doing this grand history lesson talking about World War II and the fall of Hitler, and Billy turns to Susie and they're talking. Do you think Billy and Susie are engaged?
Depends on what they're talking about.
Are you going to say, is it possible that Billy and Susie are engaged?
So I have a couple of students that they talk and I say, okay, what did I say? And they repeat it for a little bit. And I'm like, it really irritates me.
Yeah. So the
I have one with autism that you would never know he's paying attention because he never looks at you and he's always fidgeting other things. But then when it came time to testing, I was like, oh, even though he doesn't actually do Heggerty, like he knows all the things, so I knew he was taking it in, even though he wouldn't actually do any of it while we were doing it. So
to your trick question, Mo, it's important to point out the difference between compliance and engagement. Just because students are looking at you and doing your every will does not mean that they're engaged in the lesson. And just because students are talking, like Chelsea said, what are they talking about? If you're talking about the fall of Hitler and they have this huge revelation that they just have to turn and tell somebody, and what they were talking about is like 100% involved and on task, then even though it's disruptive, that student's probably more engaged than half of your other class. So, yeah, compliance is not engagement. In fact, when I started doing this project and I was talking with my professors and my mentor and I was like, I want to do it on student engagement. They're like, okay, well, you've got to have something that's observable, something that's measurable. How are you going to measure that? Like if you're going to do a PD or whatever on student engagement, how are you going to measure? And it was like, well, you got a good point because engagement isn't really something that's observable. If you were to put a camera in the classroom and you were to watch it, you're not going to know just by watching that class which of those students were actually engaged in that lesson. You might have Susie who sits and draws in her notebook the whole class period, but then is able to turn around and give you all of the answers on the test. And you might have Jane who is compliant, but could give two craps about what you're saying. So the idea that engagement is something that we can look for and something that we can measure, which is why, as far as measurement went, instead of trying to measure student engagement in a classroom, we had a how do you feel about your knowledge? And at the end of this, you're going to tell me how you feel about your knowledge, because student engagement is just not something that you can really go into a classroom, watch, and measure. Student engagement is the amount of, and this is the textbook definition, So the amount of physical and psychological energy that a student puts forth into their learning experience. So kind of jumping back to what Jamie and Kat said. Jamie said participation, and then Kat added eager participation. So those, just that one little like eager, like students wanting to be involved, that goes into that. They're not only physically involved in your lesson, but they're psychologically involved as well. They want to be there. They want to know what you're learning. Student engagement is typically divided, and this is across all of the research I found. They might have labeled them a little bit differently, but there are 3 areas of student engagement. You've got behavioral, and that is your compliance. Do they do what you ask them to do? Emotional, and then cognitive. And we're going to kind of get into the 3 of those. Behavioral engagement, and I hope you don't mind that I mostly just sit here, because I'm broken.
I want you to be pacing, please.
Heavens.
I can't listen unless you're pacing.
Okay. No, I feel weird just sitting here teaching and talking. But, anyway, behavioral engagement is that on-task behavior. Most of your, like, when you think about student engagement, a lot of times behavioral engagement is what you're thinking about. Are they participating in your lesson? You know, are they raising their hand? Are they answering? Are they doing the work? That would be your behavioral engagement. Emotional engagement is kind of twofold. Number 1, is that student emotionally able to be in that lesson? And that's not always something we have control over. Do they have something going on at home? Do they have whatever? Are they just sad that day? Did their dog die? Did they? And if they are not emotionally able to really be in your lesson, then they're not really going to be engaged in what you're saying, no matter how much. And then emotional engagement is also how much they care about what you're talking about. So it's kind of twofold there with the emotional. Generally, are they okay? Are they able to be learning? And how much do they care? And honestly, the how much do they care does come back on you, because you can get them to care. And we'll get a little bit more into that later, but sharing your love for whatever it is you're teaching. Just for example, I know with our science core every year, 4th grade science, when I was a 4th grader, the one failing grade that I ever got in all of my schooling, K through 12th, was the 4th grade science rocks lesson. And now I have to teach it. And I still don't care about it. And I'm sure that as much as I try to facade it, I'm sure that there are areas of the science that I teach that those students are far more engaged, because they can tell I care more and I'm more engaged with it. So that, you know, how the student feels about the work, a lot of that does come back to us and sharing our love for what we're doing and getting them excited about learning whatever it is you're going to be teaching them. And then the final is the cognitive. And this is how much they're invested in the learning. And that's the why. And this would kind of come back to your sharing the love, but why should that student care about addition? Or why should that student care about division? Or, you know, like, why do I need to learn this? I have a calculator. Well, okay. And getting the students to understand that why, and even if that why is, it's not so much about the math that I teach you from day to day, but the grit and the problem solving and being able to get in there and work through hard things. And some of the whys are a little less concrete than others, but at the same time, that's part of engagement, is giving them that why and making them understand that there's a reason for them to care about what they're learning. So if we talk about student engagement and those 3 areas of student engagement, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive, this little area right there is actual student engagement. And you can have a student who's behaviorally engaged and they're doing what you want them to do, and they may even perform well on the test because they're being compliant and they're listening and they're following directions and they're doing the work. But unless you get them hooked, that level of engagement is less than it could be. Getting them emotionally involved, showing them the reason to care, showing them why you're teaching what you're teaching, getting all three of those is when you will truly have engaged students. Number two in student engagement, and the relationship, the student-teacher relationship, and I'm not going to sit here and ask you, well, have you tried developing a relationship with them? Because no. I mean, obviously we all do. But just the importance of creating that positive classroom environment and giving them a reason, even if a student doesn't care, and I don't know if I could remember back to 4th grade, I would wonder, maybe my teacher didn't care about rocks. And so that made it hard for me to care about it. But just giving them a reason, like the more a student cares about you, the more they're going to care about what you have to say. And just developing those relationships and getting those students hooked from that facet, creating the positive classroom environment and just having it a place where students want to come and they want to be there. I mean, I always say that, and I have this fight with my own son every single day. Getting a student to school is half the battle. And so if you have a student who not only, you not only get them to school, but they're the ones like, Mom, we gotta go, we're gonna be late. You know, getting them to want to be there. And a lot of that getting them to want to be there is that relationship and that positive classroom environment. And they know they're gonna come in here and they're gonna be loved. And everything, you know, so these are just kind of different, you know, personalization. If those of you who were here for the Great Expectations, the whole greeting them by name, I know most of that training was crap, but that was one good thing about it, was just the whole, like, be at your door in the morning, greet them, and not only say, hey, but, you know, hey, Billy, hi, Susie, how are you? As far as personalization goes, like, hey, you know, Judy, how was your softball game last night? You know, and getting to know, and I think, did I get it? Oh, okay, I'm jumping ahead. I'll just jump there. But getting to know your students and what they do and what they like and what they dislike and what's going on with them. Because again, the more they understand that you care, the more they're going to care, and the more they care, the more engaged they'll be. And then another level of engagement, and this one's kind of hard in Utah, and because Utah's very not diverse. I mean, if you look around the room, we have Pauline. Hi, Pauline.
That wasn't very inclusive.
No, but I'm just saying, but the whole idea of inclusive.
I get two by diversity.
Well, and I don't know. Sorry to call you out like that. But just making sure that your classroom represents the students you have. Now, in our schools, I would say our second largest demographic is Hispanic. And so making sure that your lessons in some way are inclusive of their culture. Whether that be, you know, using the culture in your story problems, or even just making sure that you're like, Pauline went on a 4-mile walk to whatever, and, you know, using student names and just really making sure that your classroom is not only inclusive. We generally think an inclusive classroom is including students with disabilities, but making sure you're including the diversity of your classroom as well. And like it says there at the bottom, just making sure your classroom represents the students who are in that classroom. Getting to know them. This one's important, and I have seen, not as much here, but I've seen a lot of teachers in my years that like, oh, I don't ever tell, I don't talk, whatever. I don't tell students my age, or I don't tell students this or that, or, I don't talk, but talking about yourself and humanizing yourself is huge.
I have parents, a few parents, that say that I over-reveal. I overshare with students, and that's not right.
Okay. There is probably a line of oversharing.
Well, I don't talk about.
No.
Like,
that was my point.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Sarah
there
has a personal story about that.
I'm sure there is a level of oversharing, but I'm also sure you probably don't cross it.
no.
Like it is okay for those kids to know that I was out for 2 weeks because I had surgery. Like, that humanizes you. It's okay for you to know. It's okay for your kids to know that you might be a little stressed out because you have a daughter that's getting married. It's okay for them to know that, hey, I might not get to grading those papers because I got to go to Grace's softball game tonight, or whatever. Just revealing parts about yourself that get the kids to understand that we are human. I'm sure we've all seen it. You've run into a kid in the Walmart and they're like, holy crap, you exist outside of the school?
We call that seeing them in the wild.
Yeah. When you see the children in the wild, or the children see you in the wild, whichever way you want to look at it.
That's what I call it.
But like getting them to understand that, we are human. Yeah, we do things. Yeah, we have struggles. We're not, I'm not living this happy, hunky-dory, go perfect life where nothing ever goes wrong. I'm going to have car problems. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have that. And I'm going to have amazing things happen too. Like, all year long, my students have known that I'm working on becoming a principal, and they all look at me like, you're not leaving us, are you? I'm staying for now. But just personalize, like let them know who you are, and getting them to see you as a human and not just you as an authority figure. I'm not even following my own notes here. Just final thoughts on the idea of relationships. Being an authority figure in the classroom does not mean that you have to be scary. And on the flip side of that, being approachable doesn't mean that you can't have strong instructional practices. There is what they like to call the Goldilocks zone of, this is the sweet spot. I've been teaching for 16 years, and I'm still trying to find that exact sweet spot of like, that combination of, this is my classroom and I am in charge, but we're also here whether we want to be or not, so we might as well enjoy it. So finding that Goldilocks zone, not being too overly serious with the kids, sharing those lighthearted moments with them are going to create a bond that's going to give you more engaged students. Sharing your love and enthusiasm for whatever it is you're teaching and what it is you're wanting them to learn is infectious. And the more you care and the more that they know you care about what you're teaching and what, they're going to latch onto that and they're going to be right there with you. Student engagement strategies. Now this
I can't
is...
believe you don't like rocks. Rocks are awesome.
I don't know. Like I love teaching 4th grade, but sometimes I'm like, what was I doing? Because I don't necessarily love Utah history either, but here we are. Okay, so one of the easiest and most, easiest we'll just stick with. One of the easiest ways to get students involved is making sure you have more of the whole class responses than single student responses. Or even if you say, okay, what is 2 plus 2? And then the kids raise their hand and you say, okay, Jen, what's 2 plus 2?
8.
Okay, everybody, what was it?
8.
Okay, just getting those whole class, even if you want the individual student responses and you want to say, okay, what was it? And she says 4. Then you say, okay, class, what was 2 plus 2? And you have the whole class repeat it. Just getting everybody involved and not just letting, Miss Adams sit back there and not answer. And if you do have a Miss Adams that's back there that doesn't answer, and you say, okay, Jen, what was 2 plus 2?
Okay, fine, it's 4.
4. Everybody, what was it?
4.
Miss Adams, what was it?
What?
Okay. Jen, what was 2 plus 2?
4.
Miss Adams, what's 2 plus 2?
4.
Thank you, okay? So if you have students that are sitting in the back and trying not to participate and you can see that they're not answering in the whole group responses, make them. Because eventually they're going to be like, well, crap, I don't want to do this on my own. They're going to start participating with the whole class. Another thing that I think I kind of already did before, but I had never actually heard of until my master's program, is what they call the Universal Design for Learning. And that's a lot of words and a lot of little. I actually gave you a copy of that here in your notes. Yours isn't pretty and in color. But just the whole idea, Universal Design for Learning has 3 components to it. But it's basically multiple means of everything. Multiple means of representation. Showing it to them in multiple different ways. Because not every kid is going to latch onto this way. You might need to show them this way, and you might need to show them this way. Multiple means of, so I guess that's the engagement, representation. And then multiple means of action and expression, meaning you're not always asking them to do the exact same thing. Maybe today we're going to do a worksheet, but then tomorrow we're going to create a poster. Or maybe even you give them the options within the same assignment. We're going to do this big project. You can write a report, you can make a PowerPoint, or you can make a poster. Giving them multiple ways to show, you're going to get more student engagement because maybe Billy doesn't like writing reports, but he's going to love to build you a PowerPoint, and he's still able to show you what he learned through that. Now, obviously, like if we're writing, they're going to have to write reports sometimes. I mean, they're not always going to get out of doing undesirable tasks, but giving them choices and options along the way. There's lots and lots and lots of research on the Universal Design for Learning. We could probably do an entire professional development on it. So you've got this chart. You can do more research on it if you want, or we can tell Jeff that, hey, we want to learn more about that. But yeah, just that whole multiple means of engagement, multiple ways of getting them involved, multiple means of representation, meaning you're showing them multiple ways of doing it, and then the multiple means of action and expression, meaning you're giving them different ways that they can show what they've learned. Yes, Pauline?
By doing that, you show them that Mo's way is not always correct, right? My way is not always correct, right?
But mine is.
Yours, maybe.
No, you're right, you're right.
Because I did that, because look, this is the only way. I'm like, no. Just because you did it this way does not mean that it's correct. It means that's good.
Yeah, no, you are 100% correct. But we all have the same goal. We all want to get from point A to point B, but we might not all have the same path that gets there. We can all learn the same thing and have the same outcome without taking the exact same route. Like I can go from Tooele to Salt Lake, but I could go this way, or I could go around the back of the mountain, or I could take the new highway, or I can...
I did that to my students, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, does that mean that he's wrong? It does not mean that he's wrong. We did it, and they all went, oh. They all had an oh moment for a minute there.
Yeah, now that doesn't mean that there's there's not always multiple correct answers. Like when we're in math, if it's 2 plus 2, your answer is hopefully always going to be 4. But do you know that 2 plus 2 is 4? Or do you can't see them back there, but do you use the touch points and you count them? Or do you draw a picture? Or do you, like, we all got from point A to point B, but there's lots of different ways that we could have done that. And that's exactly it. Like, it's showing them that there's not always one right way. In the back of this, I do also have all of these listed and kind of descriptions as far as what they are. But these are all different student engagement strategies that are ways to get the kids involved. And if you want to know more about all of them go ahead and read. But what I'm working with Jeff on and what we're going to try and do is create what we are going to call the Scholar 6, which is going to be kind of a school-wide set of student engagement strategies. So if you have teachers that are like my kids aren't involved, here are 6 things. Well, which of those have you tried? Or which of them do you want to start to try? Work on it. If you don't know all 6 or you don't want to learn all 6. So we're I don't know, what maybe. There we go, good enough. But we're working on coming out, and ideally, in a perfect world, every classroom will get one of these, and you're just like, oh my goodness, these kids aren't doing it. All right, everybody, stand up, hand up, pair up. We're gonna find a partner. We're gonna work through this together. But you got to choose somebody different than last time. So these 6 are kind of all of these that I listed here. These 6 are the ones that I'm kind of going to focus on moving forward as we finish up today. So you have the first one there is round robin, which works best in table groups, or at least where every person in the group takes a different turn to answer. So they talk about it as a group, they come up with an answer as a group, and then person 1 shares, and then next time person 2 shares, and then next time person 3 shares. So everybody in the end eventually gets a chance to share. Rally coach generally works best in partners, and it works best if you partner up kind of a higher student with a lower student. And so the high student is the coach first, and they guide them through, like, let's just say it's a math problem, they guide them through that math problem. And then you turn around and the lower student guides the high student through the same math problem. So that they're not only being taught how to do it, they then have to turn around and kind of teach how to do it, which will enforce, and to get everybody involved, because one person's teaching while one person's working, and then you flip-flop. Now this person's teaching while this person's working. The stand-up, hand-up, pair-up is a way you can get into groups fairly easily that aren't necessarily the same table groups.
Bridger Dalton, if you are here, please come to the office. Bridger Dalton, please come to the office.
And the idea behind stand up, hand up, pair up, it's like, okay guys, we're going to make groups of 3. Everybody stand up, put your hand up. If you see somebody with their hand up, they're available to make a group. Once you've found a group, your hands go down. Okay, well, we only have 2, okay? Whose hands are still up? Go find somebody. So it's just a way of finding more groups. Think, jot, pair, share. It's commonly just called think, pair, share. But the idea is you ask a question, you give them some time to think about it, and then the jot is so that you know that they actually thought about it, because they have to write something down. So they think about the answer. Okay, today we're gonna do what is 3 times 4. Everybody think about it. Okay, jot down your answer. Turn to your tables and share your answer. So you kind of, they think, they write it down, they share with their group. So the pair, they share with the partner, and then so the think, jot, pair, they're talking with their partner, and then share, you end up sharing as the whole class. Showdown is the 5th one there, and that's basically your whiteboards. And whiteboards are brilliant because you can see who is and isn't participating right away. Put a problem or a question or whatever up on the board. All right, write down your answer. When I say showdown, you're going to show me your answer. So it can be multiple choice questions. It can be math problems that have one answer. With math, it's a great way to wander around and you can kind of see how they're working and how they're working and how they're figuring it out. And if you see someone struggling, you can kind of, while everyone else is finishing, stop and focus in on one person. But then in the end, you're like, okay, show me your answers. And they raise their boards, and you can see real quick who did and didn't get the right answer. And then the last one, 4 corners, is generally best when there's multiple correct answers. But it's just another way to allow the students to get up, to move, so they're not in the doldrums of just sitting there and, Okay, so you like corner A, corner B, corner C, corner D, or the red, green, blue, whatever, however you would want to set it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you'd say, you know, it could be a multiple choice question, and then they go to the corner that they think is the right answer. It could be something with more than one answer. It could be opinion questions. It could be, but it's just another way to get all of the students up and engaged. Yeah, the Scholar 6. You guys don't mind if we get done quick, do you? Okay, that's fine. You guys are amazing. I just wanted to say that. I know I went through it fast. Really the big just kind of reviews are remembering this here, that student engagement is not necessarily just are they participating, because compliance does not mean engagement. Making sure that you're making everyone feel included and welcome, you're personalizing, you're sharing about yourself, but not too much, Mo. Don't overshare.
Stop with the bowel movement.
Got it.
I don't do that. I really don't. You would think, according to a parent, that that's what I'm talking about.
There was a school year one year that I ended up having to go into the emergency room the last week of school. And I called them, like I FaceTimed with them on like the last day of school. And I was just like, guys, guess what? I pooped. And that was so exciting because it meant I got to go home. And we all had to, so even bowel movements if it's appropriate. I mean, you know.
Talk about my mom's bowel movements.
I was gonna say, I have an aging mother and I've learned way too much about that.
Yeah.
Like every time I see her, I'm like, thanks for the update, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
My mom lives with me now, so I can see where she's been. I'm like, steam plane.
And then just kind of reviewing the final, just the strategies, making sure you're getting the whole class involved and not just singular student responses. If you wait for raised hands, you're going to be calling on the same 3 people the whole time. And sometimes that's okay, but if you're calling on the same people, all 3, all the time, then make everybody repeat it. Giving them multiple ways of doing things so that they know that there's not always just one right path to get to where we're going. Like I said, all of those are kind of listed in the back. We talked about the 6 of them. Gamification is one that kids love. Anytime you can turn something into a game, you're going to have more engagement. Even if it's like Jeopardy, or you just put them on teams. And we're going to take points today to see which team. Anytime you can gamify a lesson or a review, you're going to get more engagement. And then the Scholar 6 is something that I hope to push to get, so that if you're ever like, these guys aren't, well, here's some strategies that you can draw on that they've been doing since kindergarten. So you wouldn't even have to hopefully teach them the protocol for it. They should know how and they can do it.
I'm sorry, it just made me giggle just for 1 second. Only because, as you said that, what flashed through my mind is there's no names on papers. And I literally told me exactly what you said. You guys have known how to write your name since kindergarten. Why do I not have names on these papers?
No, I know.
Just as you said that, that's just the only thing that flashed through my head. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Now, I know that Miss Cat taught you how to write your name on your paper. Why are we still talking about this in 6th grade? Okay, if you guys would just take a quick, I don't know. I know I went through that fast. Are there any questions?
I need to go get my phone because I literally don't have it ever since.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I know I went through it fast, and it was a lot, but I also want to be respectful of your time and not go too far in depth into everything. I really do appreciate you guys putting up with me this year and these PDs that I've been putting on these last couple of months. As an administrator, if I were principal, I would probably be bringing in experts to teach these things and not necessarily teaching them myself. But that does not work for, your capstone and your practicum. They want to see you do it and not just you know who to call. Ghostbusters.
I was just going to say. Oh, just keep your mouth shut, Cam.